On this episode, we meet Blondell Gary, a devoted wife, mother, and grandmother killed in an ambulance crash while on her way back from accompanying her husband to a non-emergent medical visit. Adored by friends and family, her story has a twist of bigamy, appeals, and family disputes. They unfortunately trusted Alex Murdaugh to sort it all out, and instead, he helped himself to their settlement. Stay tuned for Murdaugh Money, The Victims. Part 6. Blondell Gary. On this season of The Other 55%, the trial that consumed the entire true crime community and beyond.
And I could see his brain on
generating millions of dollars in fees. That was not enough for you.
I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the night times when you're attempting to go to sleep. I'm sure they come and visit you.
All these people on these two exhibits, these were real people that needed this money, is that correct?
I'm sure they did.
somebody going to check them.
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check them?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Oh, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become.
The murder trial is over, and the next trial for his financial crimes is about to begin. We've heard the number of indictments. Let's go beyond the numbers. As Creighton said, these are real people. Let's hear their stories on Murdaugh Money, The Victims with Cassidy O'Connell. Charles and Blondell Gary had one of those movie-style relationships of love, loss, and love found again. They married, had 2 children, then divorced. Charles remarried in 1982, but in time found his way back to Blondell, and they remarried in 1999. After years together again, Charles became ill and eventually became paraplegic, with Blondell taking charge of his care. That's how it came to be that on January 31st, 2012, she was riding in the passenger seat of a non-emergent ambulance. Now I have to take a moment here and point out that in this appeal document that we'll be reviewing later, it's recorded that the date of the accident was February 16th, 2012. But in the February 1st, 2012 edition of the Post and Courier newspaper, her accident is described as being on Tuesday, the previous day, which matches her obituary as January 31st, 2012. It still surprises me that no one seems to catch these errors in documents. I've come across so many while researching these cases. In the case of Hakeem, documents were misnamed, wrong info filled in, but 17 days off the date of death? The wrong month even? It just seems so careless. But anyway, back to the story. On January 31st, Charles needed transport for a medical appointment, and Blondell had arranged, like many times before, for low-country medical transport. They were on their way back from the appointment. They had just turned off Highway 17 onto Old Sheldon Church Road. It's named Old Sheldon Church Road after Prince William's Parish Church that was originally built in the mid-1700s. It's been burned down twice, but its ruins still stand, and it's a landmark for photographers, weddings, ghost chasers, and an Easter church service is still held there every year. This road, like many country roads, though beautiful, can be treacherous, and has been the place of several accidents, some of which have also been fatal. They'd gone about half a mile where there's a slight curve when the driver inexplicably slipped off the edge of the road, overcorrected, lost control of the vehicle, and crashed into a tree. Charles was secured on a stretcher in the back, but Blondell was in the front and took a huge impact. Charles, the driver, and another passenger were taken to the hospital and treated for their wounds. But sadly, Blondell was dead before help could arrive. Blondell was only 57. In her obituary, she was described as a woman who loved cooking. She attended culinary school in her younger years and later became an evangelist to preach as a member of the Temple of Faith ministry in Ridgeland, South Carolina. She's described as being a dedicated servant, always willing to help anyone she could. She had a great sense of humor and used it to help others laugh in times of trouble. She left behind 4 children and 5 grandchildren. Her oldest daughter, Angel Gary, was appointed personal representative to her mother's estate. That same year, she filed a suit against Low Country Medical Transport, and the case was settled in 2015 for $2.25 million. Then, things got troublesome. As was reported in earlier episodes, when you die intestate and you're married and have children, half of your estate goes to your surviving spouse, and the other half is divided equally amongst your kids. So whatever portion of the $2.25 million that was left after attorney's fees, funeral costs, etc., would have been divided in half and distributed in that manner. I don't have the details in this particular case for how much the wrongful death portion would have been, but for argument's sake, let's take an arbitrary number of $1.5 million. If that was the amount, Charles would have received $750,000, and the remaining $750,000 would have been split 4 ways for her 4 kids, or $187,500 each. Now, if Charles is out of the way, then that $2.25 million would be split into 4 equal portions of $562,500. But how do you get rid of Charles? Well, it turns out Charles was not divorced when he remarried Blondell in 1999. His divorce was not actually finalized until January 21st, 2001. That means he was not in a position to legally marry Blondell in 1999, so his marriage to Blondell was not legally recognized. So, on December 14, 2015, based on this information, Angel Gary filed a petition to determine heirship to her mother's estate. At a hearing on January 13, 2016, Charles lost when the circuit court sided with Angel, saying that he was not a legal heir since he was not her legal husband. In that same year, Charles files an appeal, and since their marriage was not legal, common law marriage becomes an arguable issue since they had lived together again as man and wife, and common law marriages can be considered in such cases. However, legal precedents quoted in the case include Johns v. Johns in 1992, where the court ruled against her because James Johns was married to another woman during their cohabitation. To quote South Carolina Code, all marriages contracted while either of the parties has a former wife or husband living shall be void. Following public policy expressed by the General Assembly that bigamous marriages are void and that common law marriages that start out with bigamy do not automatically become common law once the bigamy is settled, such as through a divorce. He therefore lost the appeal and was no longer considered a legal heir of Blondell's estate. Unfortunately for Angel, she hired Alex Murdaugh and his firm, and when the settlement money came in on April 11, 2019, while Alex's Thievery was going full force, after 4 years of her trying to settle her mother's estate, Alex took $112,500 of the wrongful death money that she had just won and deposited it into his fake forge account. This case leaves a lot of questions for me. Why did Angel Gary want her dad cut out so badly that she was willing to wait 4 years and lots of attorney's fees later? Also, more importantly for me, what would Blondell, who seemed to love and care for her husband, have wanted? In any case, poor Blondell. An update on this case: besides being named in the upcoming criminal trial against Alex, attorney Justin Bamberg helped settle Blondell's estate, in addition to several other victims, for an undisclosed amount. Charles Gary has since passed. If you haven't seen all the episodes in the series, I've pinned the links to each of them in comments below. Start with the Plyler sisters, where it kind of all started, and work your way through to get updated on all of the financial victims of Alex Murdaugh in Murdaugh Money: The Victims. Episode 8 coming soon. Until then, this is Cassidy O'Connell saying stay well and stay tuned.